just to relax. So here we are speaking with Hellen Cooper.
Hi.
And Hellen owns, it's ABUCS, right?
ABUCS Scuba Charters, and the shop here that we opened 4 years ago is the Dive Brockville Adventure Centre.
In Brockville?
In Brockville, Ontario,
Ah.
on the Canadian side of the St. Lawrence River.
St. Lawrence, right outside the front door there. We can even see it. So how did you get to all of this? What made you decide to get involved in sport scuba?
Well, if you're sitting comfortably, I will begin. It all started about 15 years ago. I met my first husband, Dave Cooper, and he became a certified diver and fell in love with it. And scuba diving became his passion, and so he did every course imaginable, which Patty was more than happy to provide, and became an instructor. And we bought our first Zodiac whilst we were still living in Toronto, and we used to take people out every weekend, and I was the trusty boat tender, rain or shine, snow, hail, you name it, I did it in the Zodiac. And then when we moved to Eastern Ontario here, Brockville was the perfect place with all the shipwrecks in the area. And way back then, there were no moorings on the wrecks. We had to know where they were and drag an anchor to try and find them as well, which wasn't very good for the wrecks. And so as more and more people asked us to take them out on the Zodiac, we expanded and we purchased the Hellen C as our first real charter boat. And she's still operating as our main charter boat today. After all these years, I think this is her 13th season, something like that, if you do the math.
Wow.
We got her in 1995. So since then, we've expanded. We now have 4 boats, and all the wrecks have moorings on. We belong to Save Ontario Shipwrecks, which helps protect the wrecks, which is our marine heritage. And also from a charter operator's perspective, we need to protect the wrecks to make sure that there's still something for all the divers to see in the years to come. The more that divers touch the wrecks, the more anchors that were dragged into them for divers to go diving, the more damage they sustained. So with 2 moorings on each of the wrecks now, the divers have a safe mooring to tie off to, and it gives them a nice safe environment with a down line and an ascent line to bring them up safely. And it also makes it easier for anybody visiting to come and find the shipwrecks in the area as well, because they've all got a mooring ball on them. So if you kind of know roughly where to go, you'll see the mooring balls and be able to tie up and go on a dive.
So you mentioned wrecks a number of times. I gather there are a lot of wrecks in the area to dive?
There are a lot of wrecks in the area. We have a wreck map. It has hundreds of dive flags
Hundreds.
all over it. Hundreds. And every dive flag represents a shipwreck. Now, not all of them are diveable. Not all of them are worth diving because there isn't much left. But we do have some pretty good main wrecks that we take people out to see. We have the Muskellunge, which was a great big tugboat with 2 brand new boilers that unfortunately caught fire, burnt down to the waterline, and the captain headed into shore to try and ground her for the fire crews to come down. This across the road, there was a ferry used to operate here that used to go from Brockville to Morrisburg across the way, and the fire truck would get onto the ferry if there were any fires on the islands or if there was any boat on fire. So they had to sit there and wait for the fire truck to come, but unfortunately they solved the problem themselves. The boat sank, and so it put out the fire, but not before one of the boilers exploded. So it's a very open hull, but there's lots of ship's parts to see. And that particular wreck, there are tons of fish, schools and schools of fish. They particularly love that one. And so if anyone wants to take pictures of fish or just they love to see fish, that's the wreck we take them down to. Then we have, right outside the shop here, you can see the mooring balls from here, we have the Sir Robert Gaskin, which holds the record for sinking the most number of times. She sank 3 times before they said, "That's it, you're out of here." She was actually out to rescue the ferry boat, the Armstrong, which took on water and sank. But the first time she tried to raise it, one of the pontoons broke free, torpedoed to the surface because they were filled with steam, that was how they raised them up, and smashed right through her starboard bow. So she ended up sinking on top of the Armstrong. So they then had to raise the Gaskin, and in doing so, one of the couplings broke free and she went down again. And then the next attempt, they actually got her to the surface, started bringing her towards shore, and her stern started to pull away, and she went down a 3rd time, and that's where they left her. So they later went on to rescue the ferry, and she actually went back in service for a time before the ferry ceased to run. So
I imagine that there are other things to see in the St. Lawrence River besides just wrecks. I mean, there's other
Definitely.
things.
That's definitely the main draw in the area. People come here to see the shipwrecks. They come from Europe, they come from England, they come from all over the northern states, as well as Canada. We have wall dives as well, which are awesome to see the wall formation. We've got one here in Brockville, there's one in Rockport that we go to see. So we have 2 boats here in Brockville at St. Lawrence Park, but we also have 2 boats in Rockport as well, so that we can take people over on the US side. We've also got drift dives. Obviously, being a river, there is some current. Some of the sites have got a mild or no current, and other sites have got a ripping current, depending on what divers are looking for, and also what their certification level is, of course. We always find that out before we assign you to a charter. But a lot of divers will go bottle hunting. They'll go digging in the mud to see what they can find. And people have found lots of clay pipes, torpedo bottles, all the stuff that used to be garbage from years ago, today is treasures. So you can go for a drift dive just bottle hunting, or a drift dive just to check out the underwater canyons, and there's an underwater waterfall that's just up from Ivy Lee Bridge. So there's lots of different things other than shipwrecks to see. And of course the fish, lots and lots of different fish.
So this is actually, this has become your full-time thing. This is
Yes.
what Hellen's all about.
This
then.
is what Hellen does year-round. And I know one question people always say to me is, well, what do you do in the winter? The boats come out of the water and the river, well, it gets a bit stiff. But in the winter time, that's when I get to do all the stuff I don't get time to do in the summer, and catch up on all the paperwork and the marketing and the advertising. And actually, just recently,